Good morning, this is Josh from Perkins. Today we're going to be doing a maintenance on a 22 kilowatt generator. It's a 22 kW air-cooled machine. It's typically what we would install residentially. So today I'm going to go through the steps of what we do and what we say is the correct maintenance. So we're out here doing the maintenance. Very first thing we want to do is we want to put the machine in off position, going from ready to run green light to a red light, off. Off means machine's not going to crank up, nothing's going to happen. If customer loses power, the machine is not going to crank up and surprise us. One of the first things we want to do is we want to come in here. Machine's a little slow. We want to look and see what kind of hours. And this customer's hours are 59.7. This machine's probably about 2 years old. So that's pretty consistent with the 5 minute a week exercise and, you know, a few outages here and there, so nothing crazy there. And then we're going into the dealer menu. We always reset the maintenance. What this does is almost like when you take your vehicle in to get an oil change performed, they reset the oil light on your vehicle. This is the same idea. Now we want to go in, verify that we have firmware updated. Actually, this is on Wi-Fi, so it is automatically updated. If we were going to do a firmware update, basically lift this lid. You have a USB and a fuse that's in here. We would simply insert the USB. The controller would ask you, do you want to perform this action? We would hit yes, and it would update. It shows that what is current on the panel, I know that was really fast, shows what's current on the panel is what's current on the stick. We're going to go ahead and hit enter just to do it so we can see exactly what's entailed with updating this Evolution 2.0 controller. Alright, so the update is complete. It'll always come back and tell you switch to off. Now we can safely remove our USB stick and move along. This machine here already has firmware updated because it is enabled for Wi-Fi update. So no update needed on this machine currently. Because we've just updated the firmware, now we're going to update, or we're going to reset the maintenance light. $59.7 hours. Hit enter, select yes. Maintenance has been reset. All right, so now we're at the portion of the maintenance where we are going to do our cold checks. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we want to make sure that we check the oil levels to make sure that we're able to run a machine that has oil in it. And as you can see, this oil is kind of hard to read on a stick, but Generac was smart enough to put 2 holes in the stick so that at least if you see oil in the holes, you know that you're in a safe point. Typically speaking, this machine has 59 hours on it. I adjusted the valves at the last visit. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to run the machine for 2 minutes just to hear it run before I remove the spark plugs, before I move the air filter, because I want to know now if there's something wrong before I touch it. So if the machine runs good now, it should run good after I put new spark plugs and a new air filter in it. It's been several times in the past through the history of people doing work on any equipment that they never ran the equipment first, so they're chasing a problem that may have already existed before they touch the equipment. Machine ran good and strong. There was nothing out of the ordinary that told me, hey, I am broke. So we will move forward. We'll remove the outer door cover, get it out of our way. I always pull the air filter cover off, get it out of the way. Always want to just make sure everything's good and clean. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the spark plugs and put new ones in. I've got the air filter removed, got it out of my way. It's kind of tight in here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove cylinder 1 spark plug. It's always a good rule of thumb on the air-cooleds that you do two things. Change the spark plugs before your cold season. Like right now is their first cool day. That's the first good thing. For some reason, these air-cooleds like new spark plugs when it gets cool outside. And we always put anti-seize. Anti-seize is basically a thread paste that goes on the spark plugs and verifies that the spark plug will not get seized into the heads. The heads on these air-cooled machines are made out of aluminum, so this paste is just another good idea of making sure that you can get the spark plugs out. But I mean, you can tell by looking at the spark plugs, this machine was firing very good. No fouls or nothing. I mean, this is natural gas, but the machine is actually running very good. Go ahead and gap everything, no matter what they say it is. We check it. Wow, see, that one's open. Now, when you're doing your anti-seize, it does not take a whole lot, and you do not get it on the electrode. So all I do is put a little bit on there, and I'll just take my finger and I will just smooth it around. And it doesn't take a whole lot. And this one's ready to go. Back in. Always, always, always start them by a finger. You don't want to over tighten them, you just want to turn them until they stop. That way you're actually compressing this. This is a compression gasket or washer, if you will. And what that does is when you compress this guy, it just makes sure that all the compression stays in the motor and doesn't leak out around the spark plug. Very important. Make sure you put your spark plug wire back on. It is too easy to forget. Working my way back forward, I pull the air filter out just so I have more room to work on the machine. Put us a new filter back in. Now we're to cylinder 2. 2 screws on the top, 1 on the bottom, and this whole side panel comes off and exposes all the wiring that's underneath the controller, the battery, the internal gas demand regulator is inside here. It's just a nice spot to house all of these important components. And as you can see, it's dirty in there because what happens, air enters into the generator's enclosure through these louvers that are actually screened to keep bugs out. But what happens, air comes in, whatever's dirty that gets sucked in falls. As you can see, there's evidence of it, but all the clean air gets sucked up through the top. There's an opening in here where it goes and hits the air filter. So these machines were actually designed to be ran extended amounts of time without the air filter getting dirty. So the cleaner air that we can put into the engine, the better this engine's going to run and the longer it's going to last. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of clean up in here a little bit. This will get dirty again. This machine is actually in the tree line. Customer wanted it kind of out of sight. So it is out of sight. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to get this battery up and kind of out of the way. Get it out here. Also like how Generac made it available for us to get the batteries out of the machine so you can kind of look. So this machine here is 100% aluminum, so it's not gonna rust, it's not gonna rot. But what we're going to do is we're going to check and make sure that the levels, water levels, are what they need to be in here. All we're doing now is basically looking down inside the wells to see that we actually have coolant inside the battery. And as you can see down in there, they are not dry. All right, so battery so far looks good. We're not going to know if it is good until we load test it. We use what has been used for many years, and it's an element type load tester. And basically all I'm doing is just wiping it off so that I can make sure that I get a good connection point. So this is as it sounds. We're just going to load test it. As you can see, we're connected up. All right, with this particular load tester, it shows that right now that our battery charges just a hair over 13 volts. We're actually going to hit it and load it for 10 seconds. And this battery is good because it never fell below about 600 cranking amps. So this customer's battery is in good shape. We will not be replacing it yet. So this battery is in good shape. I don't over torque these either, and do not use a tool like an impact to put these in. Now we're at the point of the maintenance to where we're going to do our running checks, where we're going to be measuring our outputs of the generator. We're going to run it long enough to get the oil good and hot. Never change engine oil cold. I'm a stickler. The way I was taught was change oil hot, change filter hot. Yeah, it makes a little bit of a mess, but filters are easier to take off and put on when it's hot. I'm going to start the unit up. I'm going to scroll through to verify what our output voltage is. what our output frequency is, and what our battery voltage running is. Our resting voltage, we can go ahead and get that now while it's quiet. So right now our battery voltage is 14 volts. When we go to crank, you'll actually see the battery get loaded, which we've already load tested it. But our baseline is 14. It's a cooler morning. The battery's getting charged harder. That, you know, it's the battery's getting more amps thrown at it because the ambient temperature, which, let's see what shows it is charging, 59.7 hours. Right now there's no output voltage because we're not running. There's no frequency. There's no speed. There's our utility input volts. So by putting in auto, the machine will not run because there's no need. It shows our ambient temperature of 49. So with the controller knowing it's 49 degrees, it puts us probably in that mid-range charge state. Firmware. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back through here to our battery voltage. We're going to crank it up. It's going to be a little loud. So now we're at the point where I'm going to do a transfer switch test. Something that Perkins that we do, and I think everybody should do, is we want to verify the machine is over there running, warming up the oil. But with the machine running, I train it this way. We want to make sure the voltage that the machine is putting out is sufficient to carry the load on the home. So the only way to do that is to open up the switch while the machine is running. We'll verify that our voltage is what it needs to be, and we're going to test it. So I am measuring where the generator leads are coming in, and as you can see on my meter, it's between 246 and 247. So this is exactly what I need to see before we go to the next step, which is load testing. Also, we're letting the oil heat up. What better way to heat it up than to make the engine work? At this particular house, there's a disconnect where I'm going to be able to disconnect utility power from the house. Generator's already running. We see our voltage. It should transfer over, and we're going to let it carry the load for 10 to 15 minutes. The reason 10 to 15 minutes is important, if the customer has done any renovations over the last 6 months to a year, your last visit, the 10 to 15 minutes are going to allow those newer loads, typically air conditioning loads, to come back on. That way you're able to verify what load the generator's having to carry. So I'm going over to kill the power. Power's been killed. There is a delay. Transferred over. Generator is now carrying the load of the house. We're still at 247 volts. Now is a perfect time to see what kind of load the generator is actually carrying. 8.4, 8.7 on that leg. 3.6 on that one. We're going to stay on our highest and just let the machine do its job. Right now the machine is carrying the load of the property, the home, the dwelling. So we'll do this for 15 or so minutes, monitoring voltage output, monitoring what kind of load is against the generator. All right, so now we've ran 15 minutes. As you can see, our voltage is still up 246, 247. Our load is still within the range that this machine is capable of carrying. So I'm going to turn utility power back on. When I turn it back on, there's about a 10-second delay as far as going from a good generator source back to a good utility source. Machine will not shut down because I have it in manual for heating up the oil. But I'm going to turn utility back on now. So now we're back to the utility. In normal situations, not at a maintenance, but in normal situations, the machine would run 10 seconds or run for 60 seconds and would shut down. As you can see, the load came off the generator. We're back to 0 amps. Our voltage is still present because the generator is still running. But this was a successful test. All right, so what we do here is if anybody comes behind us, oil was changed at 60.1 hours, my initials, the date, air filter, spark plugs, oil and oil filter has been replaced. Let it dry a minute. On these caps for these air-cooled units, you see I could not remove it by hand. There is a reason, there is a purpose. As these machines run for an extended amount of time, this oil cap can come loose. When it comes loose and falls out, all of the oil or enough of it will come out, make a mess inside the unit. The machine will shut down due to a low oil pressure shutdown. It is a safety feature that protects the engine. Pull the dipstick, wipe everything off, get over here to the side. Now we're going to pull the filter off. Another little something that we do, if you have a filter that's hanging down, straight up and down, we always put a little bit of oil in it to begin with, so that when we go to run the machine, there's already oil present in the filter. Try to do this where I don't make a mess. Doesn't take a whole lot, and the filter media that's inside the filter will absorb the oil. So I usually fill it up a couple times, and that way when I spin it back on here, there's already oil inside the filter housing itself. We're not creating a dry start, if you will. Now the engine's good and hot, and there's oil still in between. There's still lubrication inside, but you know, my background is, let's make this guy last as long as it's going to. So I want to make sure that we don't dry start. And I take some of the old oil and lubricate the O-ring to make sure that it doesn't tear. Stick our new filter back on. And I just get it good and hand tight. Carefully remove this guy out. Now we don't have a big mess. Pretty easy. Now we're going to actually drain the oil. Sometimes, depending on how long you ran it or how cold it is, summertime the oil comes out really fast and in a hurry. All right, so now we're down at the end. Got all the oil drained out. Years past, Generac had brass on this end and a brass fitting. I guess after enough complaining from customers and from technicians like myself, they would strip out. The brass would go back together hot now, and then as it cooled off, it would get extremely tight. So thanks, Generac, for doing that. That makes life easier on all of us technicians out in the field. Get the oil out of our way. And now we're going to fill up the machine. We're going to check and make sure. This machine holds 1.9 quarts of oil. I have added some in here. So I'll put just shy of the 2 quarts of this oil. We'll check it. We'll run it. We'll let it cool a moment. We'll check it. And then I'll go to start cleaning. Remember to torque your cap. You don't have to break it, but I can't turn it by hand. It's not going to come out. So I'm going to give it a moment for the oil to drain down through the passages to get back into the pan. Like I said, this dipstick is really hard to read, but there again, Generac put holes in it so that you could see if there's oil filled up in the holes, that you know the level is at least that high. So we're going to check it. You can see there's oil up and it's a little bit above. More oil needs to go in the filter, but we are safe to run. When I run from this position, because it's about to get loud, right now the oil filter's cold. I run it at least until the oil filter's hot enough where I can't touch it. At that point, I know that the filter's full. I know that the oil is hot. And I know that when I shut it down, it won't take as long to drain down. It's just another one of the things that I've taught the guys over the years is run it until the filter's hot enough where you just, you know, where you don't want to hold on to it anymore. It's going to do two things. One, you'll know that oil's getting slung around in the engine, and you're going to know that that oil is all pretty much, you've put it through its first heat cycle. So we're going to run it now, see what happens. This is our third chance to make sure that the machine's going to run. Also, it's going to run and run correctly for the customer. Machine ran good, filter's nice and warm. Pull your dipstick, and I basically just wipe it. Give it, 30 seconds or so for that nice brand new warm oil to drain back down. We will check the oil level, and that will be a good successful oil change. Machine has ran exactly as it was supposed to 3 times in a row. Like I said, for new technicians out there, or if a homeowner decides it's something they want to do, it is good to establish the baseline as far as if your machine's running right. Your brain will go to weird places if you don't run the machine first to verify that it's doing the correct thing from the very beginning. You don't know who's touched what. You need to establish a baseline that's going to tell you, hey, this machine is capable of doing the job. And I don't know, it's just really cheap insurance for your brain and your heart. Those of us out there that have done this for years develop a passion for fixing broke things, as I have. That's one of my callings, is to fix things that are broken. Well, if you don't know it's broken, how can you fix it? Well, out here doing maintenance, you're doing a job that's a vital function of, hey, we got to make sure the oil's changed. We got to make sure that the machine does its job. If you don't test that first, you're just not going to know what's ahead of you. But we're going to check the oil now. And our oil is perfect. Can you get that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So oil is good and full. We are ready to start cleaning this nasty machine up. After we take the time and clean up the customer's machine, this isn't, Mother's doesn't sponsor me, but this is what I use on my Harley, and this is what I use. But the Mother's little spray wax, I mean, we just taken, I put some spray wax on it just to just actually help protect the machine. This is electrically adhered paint, but I still just like to use the spray wax just because I want the customer to see that we left this better than we found it. You know, shows that we care about what we're doing. Thank you for watching. Please check out our other training videos on our website to learn more about what we do here at Perkins Generator Sales and Service. Have a great day.